Yeah, we're still on Business Nigeria. Let's delve into our second segment as we look at the latest developments in the oil market. Pricing of the global commodity and the subsidy regime in Nigeria despite the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act. Latest data on the amount spent on subsidy on fuel by government subsidizing the commodity with 1.593 trillion naira between January and June this year. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited pumped 54.6 billion naira into refinery rehabilitation during the 6-month period. It is clear that the current fuel subsidy regime debilitating impact on the nation's fiscal fragility cannot be overstated. So far as part of measures to counter this phenomenon, there are increasing calls to the federal government to explore a systematic subsidy removal program that will cushion the impact of the nation's vulnerable population through a well-coordinated and effectively transmitted social protection regime. Joining me to look at this development in the oil market and subsidy regime and, of course, an exit plan that Nigeria can explore, I have Noelle Okwedy. She's a senior energy analyst with Stears Business. Noelle, it's good to see you. Good afternoon. Thanks for your time.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Yes, when I read yesterday about a systematic way of taking away subsidy, many would have said that when the price of crude was down, Nigeria would have just done the needful. But at the moment, it's too late to do that. So what do you understand by systematic removal of fuel subsidy? Looking at what this is taking away from government day by day.
Thanks for that question, Tolulope. Well, like you said earlier, the petrol subsidy is costing us a lot of money. So we've spent 1.593 trillion naira in 6 months compared to 1.57 trillion naira in 12 months last year. So this year we're probably going to spend more than 3 trillion naira on petrol subsidies alone. And that just tells you that it's unsustainable. So we've already, from data that we've seen that the bottom 40% of Nigerians only consume 5% of Nigeria's petrol. So that means that the petrol subsidy isn't actually benefiting the poorest Nigerians. Rather, it's middle class and upper class Nigerians that are benefiting from cheap petrol, people that can afford to pay for petrol. So I think a phased removal, like we've said before, a phased removal is the best option where we increase the price of petrol gradually. I think right now petrol prices have actually increased because it's difficult for the government to keep up with the subsidy. So right now petrol in Nigeria is 179 naira per litre from 162 that it used to be. And it would be wise to just continue gradually increasing petrol while also providing some sort of benefits or stimulus packages for the poorer Nigerians who don't even benefit that much from the petrol subsidy in the first place.
Some things, many believe that a lot needs to be done, particularly at this time when the issue of trust comes in. We've gone this route before. I know we've talked about this before. But what are these things that we think government should do? Many will talk about maybe having buses that will run via gas, looking away from all of this. What have we started planning at all?
So we haven't seen any of the plans materialize. We know that the government has announced, or they announced a few years ago, that by the end of 2019, I think, 1 million buses in Nigeria will be running on gas, but we haven't even seen one. And this is where this trust factor comes in. So the government says one thing, but they don't follow through. So they say 1 million buses will be running on gas. 2022, 3 years later, we haven't even seen one. And that's why when they say something, it's hard to believe them. So even if they said they were going to remove the subsidy and use the money to develop Nigeria and invest in education, healthcare, and even capital projects, roads, transportation, it's hard for us to believe them because that track record isn't there and they haven't built that trust that they should have built over time.
Now, taking it from there, we're not getting even enough funds from the sector. Well, issues around theft and all of that, which have been able to support the economy. Another very important question I would ask you is, we see a little bit of deliberate efforts now, very concerted ones from the NNPC and the likes, going after these guys, doing all of this bunkering, illegal oil refining, vandalism, and all of that. How well do you think this? Where will this take us? Do you think that we are getting it right? or it's still a gradual process?
Well, I would say that we have to, I guess, applaud the NNPC for finally making a move, because oil theft has been in Nigeria for years, but this is the first time that we're seeing any proper effort from them. So they launched an app to where people are supposed to report incidents of theft and vandalism. They've also said that they have installed cameras at production points, and that so any oil that leaves Nigeria will have a unique number, so that if someone steals oil and sends it to an international refinery, the international refinery can check whether that oil was legally sent or legally sent. All these measures are, I guess, a good stepping point, but they are not going to solve theft. First of all, with the app relies on people actually wanting to report incidents of theft. And I don't know about you, but I don't know how many Nigerians would be willing to report incidents of theft. And I think this is where this trust issue comes in, because for normal Nigerians, they feel like even if the oil money wasn't being stolen or oil wasn't stolen, would the government use the money to develop the country? And if that certainty isn't there, then there's no incentive for people to even want to report incidents of theft. With the cameras at the production points, who are the people watching the cameras? Who are the people watching the footage? Who are the people that are going to go and check when this theft happens? Will they know the exact location where? And even the other solution with putting unique numbers on oil that is sent out of Nigeria, it just doesn't seem enough. It's just not enough to deal with the scale of theft, because we've said that 400,000 barrels of oil per day is stolen in Nigeria. That amounts to like $1 billion. And that's not $1 billion in a month. That's not a small amount that we should just think that an app is going to fix for us. There needs to be more investment into smart pipelines, sensors, and just better security all around for our pipelines and even for exports.
Clearly, this shows that this is not just a job for just anybody. Some professionals actually will be involved in this, because it's not just you going somewhere and just rupture a pipeline and think that you could just get this crude. This really needs to be addressed holistically. The way I totally agree with you. It's beyond all of this that we're talking about. But let's go back to gas and talk more about gas. The minister says it's the decade of gas. We want to focus on gas. But do we have that infrastructure to take advantage of both our proven and unproven reserves?
Exactly. We actually don't have the infrastructure. And that's because the commercial track isn't right. So right now in Nigeria, gas is subsidized, like local gas supplies. So the major consumers of gas are electricity. Actually, electricity is the major user of gas, because 80% of Nigeria's electricity comes from gas. But the problem there is that because the generation companies aren't liquid because of the power sector issues, they can't pay the gas suppliers to now expand their capacity. And that just means that Nigeria's downstream gas sector, sorry, not downstream, Nigeria's gas sector generally is just not growing, it's not growing fast. And especially now that gas demand is so high. And even another problem is that even the NLNG that converts gas to liquefied natural gas and exports and gets dollars for Nigeria, because of the upstream issues with vandalism and theft, the NLNG is not producing enough gas. And so we have two issues there, where the commercial aspect of the Nigerian power sector is affecting the gas supply chain. And then the other issue where upstream vandalism and theft are affecting gas supplies to the NLNG. And we're also not getting enough export revenue from gas. So there are major infrastructure issues there.
Brilliant stuff as usual. Let's look at the NNPC. Of course, now a limited liability company. Well, that's what is happening at the moment. And they need to make money because they have to be accountable for 200 million Nigerians. That is what we've put the CEO, Mr. Mele Kyari, put him to test to see how well he can run that office. But we see this new drive for investment in the oil and gas space. A deal was signed sometime last week. A lot is being done at the moment. What do you think? It seems like it's a new dawn for the oil and gas industry. What do you think to that?
Well, I think that saying that it's a new dawn, I think it's too soon to say that it's a new dawn, because you know that the NNPC doesn't have the best reputation. But we're watching them and we're seeing how things are unfolding. With regards to the new deal that they signed, that's an improvement. So we now have the renewed contracts with some international oil companies for our deep offshore oil assets, and that's an improvement. And we could see more investment in the short to medium term in Nigeria. But on the other hand, we still have issues like SEPLAT, where the government is between the regulators and the NNPC, they seem to be dragging the approval of SEPLAT buying off Mobile Producing Nigeria Unlimited. And that's just a bad sign for investors. So on one hand, they seem to be progressive. On the other hand, they are regressive. So it's a bit difficult to say that it's a new dawn at the moment.
Indeed, I agree with you that it's too early to say that. And those kind of issues, talking about the SEPLAT, ExxonMobil, NUPRC intervention, federal government's intervention, the minister himself coming to say this would happen, and all of those flip-flops. What message does it send with regards to our oil and gas space to international investors? I am worried about what they think about us at the moment.
Yes, and I think you're right to be worried because so like we've said, Nigeria's upstream oil sector hasn't been the most attractive to investors. So one of the reasons why the PIA was brought in was because between 2015 and 2019, we only attracted 4% of the investment that came into the African oil and gas sector. And that's shocking because Nigeria is the top oil producer in Africa. So you'd expect that we should get more. But then, so fast forward to after the PIA, and then we have IOCs leaving and SEPLAT wants to buy ExxonMobil's Mobile Producing Nigeria Unlimited, the company. And then you have, like you said, the president, one day he agrees, the next day he disagrees. The deal was announced since February, and now we're in August. We still don't know which way is up. SEPLAT is still unsure. They released a statement that they hadn't been informed officially that the deal had been rejected again. And all this just creates investor uncertainty because if I'm an investor and I want to invest in Nigeria's oil sector, I want to see what's happening there. What's the likelihood of me getting approval for my deal? And then I see that I don't even know what is going on. Like nobody seems to know what is even going on with the approval process. It just discourages investment, definitely, because if the approval process is taking so long and is so unclear, then what happens if SEPLAT is even successful? Does that mean that one day somebody can come and say the deal is off? Like, it's just very uncertain, and it just means that investors will not be encouraged to invest in Nigeria's upstream oil sector, at least the onshore and shallow water sectors.
You know, considering the fact that a lot has been put into this deals, the signings, and all of this before they got to this point, it's really not a good one. Finally, before I let you go, the refinery rehabilitation. I'm harping on that word, rehabilitation. It's not a turnaround maintenance. It's a total rehabilitation, the Port Harcourt refinery, and we expect it to come on stream later this year or early next year. What are your thoughts?
Well, my first thought is that this isn't the first time that they've said the refinery is coming online at the end of the year or next year. It seems like every year there's news that year would be the year that we have functioning refineries.
Time around, yeah.
So this time around, I'll just say that we'll believe it when we see it because the track, like we said, the track record with the government isn't great. With the NNPC, we know that even as the refineries are not working, they're still paying salaries for staff. They're spending a lot of money keeping the refineries running when they're not even running. So I think that it will just take time for us to see what happens there. I actually cannot say that we will have functioning refineries by the end of the year.
All right, let me allow Noelle Okwedy go. We'll keep a tab on them, and I'm sure we'll be here again, God willing, to talk about it if truly it becomes functional. I really appreciate your time. I've been speaking to a senior energy analyst. She's a Stears Business. Noelle Okwedy, do enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for always being there for us on the show.
Thank you.